Hello friends, and welcome to a special episode of Origins of Expressions. Today we'll be going over the phrase, cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. Let's not waste any time and start this video. I know this video is a bit different from my others, but when I started to research this phrase, I knew it had to be a video all its own. This is one of those phrases that has many different theories on where it came from. So let's heat up this idiom and jump right in. Okay, so first of all, let's go over the idiom as we know it today. Cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. This idiom is said when it's very cold outside. It's a warning that you better dress warm and protect your important, bits? If not, they just might freeze and fall off. Yikes. You might also hear it said, brass monkey weather. Either of these phrases are ones that you would use in informal situations. Okay, let's start with breaking down this idiom. I find that each piece plays an important part in the creation of the phrase that we know today. First, we have the brass monkey. The brass monkey has been said to be what a naval cannon was called. We see it in Charles Augustus Abbey's diary before the mast in the Clippers in 1857. It reads, "Phew, ain't it a blowing Jehoshaphat Bumstead and cold? It would freeze the tail off a brass monkey." The tail of the monkey, as referred to by Charles Abbey, was a metal lever used to aim the cannon. Charles Abbey was a sailor who visited America. This phrase is said to have started in the United States. The reference to the tail of the monkey could have been the start of the important bits freezing off when it gets cold outside. You know, because a tail is quite important to a monkey. So the next theory is also about cannons. The theory was said to reference the brass triangle plates that support the stack of iron cannonballs on sailing ships. It was rumored that they were called monkeys, and in cold weather, the metal contracted, causing the balls to shrink and then fall off the monkey. Okay. So that sounds very scientific and quite believable, but not quite right. According to the Royal Navy records, cannonballs were stored in planks with circular holes cut into them, not stacked in pyramids. These planks were known as shot garlands, not monkeys, and they date back to at least 1769 when they were first referred to in print. On dry land, the obvious way to store cannonballs seemed to be stacking them on triangular platforms in a pyramid. On board ships is a little bit of a different matter. A little math shows that a pyramid of balls will topple over if the base is tilted by more than 30 degrees. This tilting, not to mention any sudden jolting, would have been commonplace on ships. It just isn't possible that cannonballs were stacked this way on sailing ships. Okay, that myth busted. Let's move right into the next one. Ooh, one of my favorites, the three wise monkeys. If you've ever heard the phrase, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, you're probably familiar with the brass version of these monkey figurines, which have been used as paperweights since the early 20th century. They are said to be the explanation for the brass monkey and cold enough parts of the phrase. Well, because they are monkeys, and they are made of brass, which can feel cold to the touch. And really, if we see brass monkeys, you just might think of this phrase. There are just too many common coincidences. However, their introduction to English-speaking countries comes far too late for the figures to have been the source of the phrase. In 1896, Robert Hope introduced their meaning to the West in the Temples and Shrines of Nikko. It reads, "One group represents three monkeys, one closing its eyes with its hands. It is called Mizaru, don't see any wrong. Another one closes its ears with its hands, called Kikazaru, don't hear any wrong. The other one closes its mouth with its hands, called Iwazaru, don't talk any wrong." Later on, we see a fun addition of a fourth monkey, what seems to be covering his, cold nether region? This is a fun take on the three wise monkeys. It is not because of the idiom though, or because the monkey was cold. It was meant to add to the three wise monkeys to say, well, don't fool around with anything wrong. Or, as some people would say, have no fun. So, these are not the brass monkeys that we're looking for in this phrase. Well, those were some of the fun theories of the origin of the expression, but let's get back to the real origin of cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. Anyone researching the origin of this expression is likely to be thrown off the trail by the word balls in this phrase. Of course, what we now mean by the phrase is that it's cold enough to freeze your, private parts off. So cold that even your most hidden, tucked away, wrapped up parts will get cold. And for my lady friends out there, don't you worry. Someone came up with a saying for our sensitive parts also. As cold as a witch's, in a brass bra. Wow, that just gave me some cold chills. Okay, so back to the expression. We see the phrase in print many times and in various forms before the mention of balls. Actually, we see no printed mention of the word balls until 1978. The phrase originated in the US, and the first mention was from an autobiography of Mary Opin, Meaning a Life. It reads, "The first taxi man George encountered in Brooklyn said, 'It is cold fit to freeze the balls off a brass monkey.'" This use of the saying suggests it was used as street slang. Some other occurrences of the phrase before the word balls was put into the phrase were Arthur Menendez's biography of F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Far Side of Paradise. He includes parts of a letter written by Fitzgerald's wife Zelda in 1921. She was known to be quite brash in her language. It reads, "This damn place is 18 below zero. I go around thanking God that anatomically and proverbially speaking, I am safe from the awful fate of the monkey." In the UK, we find that Eric Partridge's A Dictionary of Catchphrases in 1977, it reads, "Shortly before World War II, the crazy gang at the Palladium played a sketch wearing fur coats, hats, gloves, etc. When the brass balls fell from the pawnbroker's sign, one of them exclaimed, 'Blimey, I didn't know it was that cold.'" These are only a few mentions of the idea of where the term balls are used, but never spoken. There are numerous early variations of this phrase. The first known version was an article titled "An Incident of the Canadian Rebellion" in the Worcester magazine in 1843. It reads, "Old Knights was as cold as a cucumber, and would have been so, independent of the weather, which, as he expressed it, was cold enough to freeze the nose off a brass monkey." We also see many variations of this phrase where they do not mention cold, but instead the opposite. They talk about it being hot. One example being found in Herman Melville's novel Omo in 1847. It reads, "It was so excessively hot in this still brooding valley, shut out from the trades, and only open towards the leeward side of the island. The labor in the sun was out of the question. To use a hyperbolical phrase of Shorty's, it was odd enough to melt the nose off a brass monkey." Other printed mentions of brass monkey that follow a little later on in the 19th century are, "Hasn't got much brains as a brass monkey," "Less bashful than a brass monkey," "Scalding throat of a brass monkey," "As cheeky as a brass monkey," "Burn the ears off a brass monkey," "Had touched the heart of a brass monkey," "Singed the hair on a brass monkey." Okay, so why did these phrases use brass monkey as their subject? Well, here are some things that we know to be true. Brass monkey was an ancient form of a cannon, also called a drake or a dog. These were recorded in an inventory published in 1650, the article of the rendition of Edinburgh Castle to the Lord General Cromwell. Short brass monkey, alias dogs. Brass drakes or monkeys were referred to in J. Heath's Flagellum in 1663. 28 brass drakes called monkeys. So, we see that this expression started out as a brass monkey being a naval term for a cannon. Since sailing was a primary way of traveling long distance, the term brass monkey was used by sailors and heard by passengers, and then, of course, carried into other parts of the world. If you're someone who did not travel by sea, you probably just heard the phrase and did not know that a brass monkey was a cannon, or the tail was a lever. Instead, you might have just pictured the animal in your head. That would explain some of the phrases that we hear about the ears, nose, and legs. There was just a misunderstanding of what a brass monkey actually was. As for the term balls in this expression, like I said earlier, that's the part that usually throws people off. Well, those are a recent appendage to this idiom and added much later on. probably for a good laugh with friends. So, like all good expressions, it was a real saying that got twisted and turned, a few new pieces were added here and there, and before you know it, it got turned into street slang and then entered into our book of idioms and phrases. Well, that's the information that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed learning about the origins of our idioms and phrases. I would love to have you subscribe if you did. Also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That way, I know if I should make more of this style, and I would really appreciate it. Oh yeah, quick question before you go. Have you heard of a different theory about where this phrase came from that I didn't mention? I would love to hear about it. Leave them in the comments below. Thank you again for watching and subscribing. I really appreciate your support. Until next time, bye!